The first strange thing about the trial was not the crowd. Crowds always came when a poor girl stood accused before powerful people. They came with folded arms, hungry eyes, and whispered opinions already dressed as truth. They came because they wanted to see fear on the face of someone who had no protection. No, the strange thing was the silence. The courtroom of Greybridge was packed from wall to wall, yet no one breathed too loudly, no one coughed, no one shuffled, no one dared look away. At the centre of the room stood a maid in a plain brown dress, her wrists loosely bound before her, her face pale but dry-eyed. Her name was Tessa Marlowe. At least, that was the name written on the prison record. 19 years old, kitchen maid at Alderwick's house, accused of stealing a noblewoman's necklace, accused of striking the house steward, accused of setting fire to the Wex Pantry to hide her crime, and worst of all, accused of causing the death of Lord Pembury's elderly mother, who had been found unconscious during the smoke and never recovered. By the time Tessa was brought before the court, the town had already decided she was guilty. A maid with no family. A maid with no references beyond Alderwick House. A maid who had been seen near the jewel cabinet. A maid whose apron had been found with soot on it. A maid who, when questioned, refused to explain where she had been during the fire. That refusal condemned her more than any evidence. Because poor people were expected to beg. When they stayed silent, the world called it arrogance. On the judge's bench sat Justice Alaric Fenmore. He was known across 3 counties as the Iron Judge. Not because he shouted. He never shouted. Not because he enjoyed cruelty. He did not need to enjoy anything. He was feared because his judgments were clean, cold, and final. His black robe fell over his shoulders like mourning. His grey hair was brushed severely back from his face. His eyes were sharp, dark, and unreadable. He had buried mercy 20 years earlier with his wife and buried tenderness 15 years earlier with his daughter. Everyone in Greybridge knew the story. Justice Fenmore had once had a little girl named Rosalind. She had vanished during a summer fair when she was 4 years old. One moment she was holding his hand. The next she was gone. They searched fields, roads, wells, inns, riverbanks, caravans, barns, and chapels. They found her blue ribbon in the mud near the old mill. They found nothing else. His wife died of grief 2 winters later. The judge never remarried, never smiled in public again. And from that forward, he treated the world as if everyone in it was hiding something. Now his eyes rested on Tessa Marlowe. "You have heard the charges," he said. His voice was low, but the entire courtroom heard him. "Do you maintain your silence?" Tessa lifted her chin. "I have spoken the truth, my lord." A murmur moved through the court. The prosecutor, Mr. Corvin Hale, smiled thinly. "You have spoken nothing useful." Tessa turned her eyes toward him. "That is not the same thing." The murmur grew louder. Justice Fenmore struck the desk once with his gavel. Silence returned immediately. Mr. Hale stepped forward, smooth as polished wood. "My lord, the accused has repeatedly refused to account for her movements between 8 and 9 on the night of the fire. The necklace belonging to Lady Mirabelle Pembury vanished. The West Pantry burned. The accused was found with soot upon her apron. She struck the steward when he attempted to question her. Tessa said, "He grabbed me." Mr. Toothtail turned sharply. "You struck him hard enough to draw blood. He grabbed me hard enough to bruise. Because you were fleeing. Because I was afraid. Of justice." Tessa looked at him for a long moment. "No. Of men who call themselves justice before anyone has asked what they did." The courtroom gasped. Justice Fenmore's eyes narrowed. Mr. Hale's face flushed. "My lord, this girl has shown contempt from the beginning." Tessa looked back at the judge. My lord, I have shown fear from the beginning. It is only because I do not cry prettily enough that they call it contempt. For the first time all morning, Justice Fenmore seemed to truly look at her. Not as a file, not as a charge, as a person. Only for a second. Then the iron returned. "Bring the final witness," he said. A side door opened. A man entered. Tessa's face changed. Not much, but enough. His name was Edmund Voss, steward of Alderwick House. Tall, narrow-faced, dressed in respectable black, with one arm in a sling and a bruise still yellowing beneath his left eye. He walked like an injured man who enjoyed being seen injured. Mr. Hale guided him to the witness stand. "Mr. Voss, tell the court what happened that night." Voss placed one hand over his heart. "I saw the girl near Lady Pembury's chamber shortly before the alarm. She looked startled when she saw me. Later, when I found her near the west pantry, she was carrying a bundle." "What bundle?" "I cannot say. She hid it." Tessa's hands tightened. Mr. Hale continued. "And when you tried to stop her?" "She attacked me." Tessa whispered, "Liar." Justice Fenmore heard it. "Miss Marlowe." She swallowed. The steward looked at her with false sadness. "I wish it were otherwise. She was a quiet girl. But quiet girls often carry the darkest intentions." That sentence hit the room exactly as he intended. People nodded. Quiet, poor girls were mysteries, and mysteries frightened comfortable people. Mr. Hale faced the judge. "My lord, the evidence speaks plainly. Theft, violence. Fire, death following from the accused acts. The court must protect society from such hidden wickedness." Justice Fenmore looked down at the papers before him. The room held still. Tessa felt the world closing around her. She had known this moment might come, but knowing did not prepare the body. Her knees threatened to weaken. She forced them still. The judge spoke. "Tessa Marlowe, this court has heard the witnesses, examined the evidence, and given you repeated opportunity to explain yourself. You have refused. Your silence has left the law with only the facts placed before it." Tessa's heart pounded. Her eyes moved past the judge to the tall windows behind him. Outside, rain streaked the glass. She wondered if the sky had looked like that the day she was born. She wondered if anyone had held her then. She wondered why the only thing she had left of childhood was a scar she did not remember receiving and a song no one believed she knew. Justice Fenmore continued. "For theft, assault, arson, and the fatal consequence that followed, this court sentences you to death." The courtroom erupted. Some gasped, some crossed themselves, some looked satisfied. A young maid near the back began to cry. Tessa did not. She simply stared at the judge. Justice Fenmore's face did not change, but his right hand tightened slightly around the gavel. It was the only sign that he was human. The guards stepped toward Tessa. That was when she spoke, not loudly, not desperately, clearly. "My lord, before I am taken away, may I ask one question, Mr. Hale snapped. "The time for questions is past." Justice Fenmore lifted one hand. The prosecutor fell silent. The judge looked at Tessa. "One question." She drew a slow breath. "Did your daughter have a scar?" The courtroom went silent, so quickly it felt unnatural. Justice Fenmore did not move. Not even his eyes. Mr. Hale turned sharply toward Tessa. "What did you say?" Tessa kept her gaze on the judge. "Your daughter, Rosalind. Did she have a scar?" A sound passed through the room, not a whisper. A shiver. No one spoke Rosalind Fenmore's name in that courtroom. Not in front of him. Not ever. Justice Fenmore's voice lowered. "Why do you ask?" Tessa's hands trembled now. She did not want them to. "But they did, because I have one, Mr." Hale laughed once, a harsh, nervous laugh. "My lord, this is a vulgar attempt to delay judgment." Tessa ignored him. She turned slightly and lifted her bound hands toward the collar of her dress. One guard moved to stop her. Justice Fenmore said, "Wait." The guard froze. Slowly, Tessa pulled the left side of her collar down just enough to show the skin below her shoulder. There, near her collarbone, was a small crescent-shaped scar, pale, old, distinctive. The judge stood. The entire courtroom seemed to fall backward without moving. His face changed in a way no one had seen in 15 years. The iron cracked. Underneath was a father. He stepped down from the bench, one slow step, then another. His eyes fixed on the scar. "No," he whispered. Tessa swallowed. "When I was little, the woman who raised me said I fell against a hearth, but I have no memory of it." Justice Fenmore stopped before her. His voice was barely audible. "Rosalind had that scar." Mr. Hale stepped forward quickly. "My lord, scars can be copied. Stories can be bought." The judge turned on him with a look so cold that the prosecutor stopped mid-step. Tessa said, "I also remember a song." The judge slowly looked back at her. Tessa's voice shook as she sang softly. "Sleep, little rose, where the river bends. Morning will bring you home again." The judge closed his eyes. For one terrible moment, he looked as if he might collapse. When he opened them, they were wet. "My wife wrote that song," he said. The room broke into chaos. Mr. Hale shouted for order. The guards stared. The crowd surged. The steward Edmund Voss turned pale. Too pale. Tessa saw it. So did the judge. Justice Fenmore's grief vanished behind something sharper. He turned toward Voss. "You knew." The steward stepped back. "My lord, I know nothing of this madness." But his voice cracked. The judge heard it. The whole room heard it. Justice Fenmore raised his gavel, but this time he did not strike the bench. He pointed it like a weapon. "No one leaves this court." The doors were shut. The sentence had been spoken. But the trial had only just begun. For 10 minutes, Greybridge courtroom was no longer a court. It was a storm trapped inside stone walls. People shouted. Women wept. Men demanded explanations. The guards formed a line before the doors. Justice Fenmore returned to the bench, but he did not sit. He stood above them all with both hands braced on the wood, his face pale with a grief that had found a pulse again. Tessa stood below him, still bound. That detail suddenly enraged him. "Remove her restraints." The nearest guard hesitated. "My lord, she is still." "Remove them." The guard obeyed at once. The rope fell from Tessa's wrists. She rubbed the red marks carefully, not looking at anyone. That small movement struck the judge harder than the scar had. His daughter's hands had once been tiny, warm, always reaching for his fingers. Now the young woman before him had the hands of a servant, hands roughened by work, hands the world had tied without hesitation. Mr. Hale tried to reclaim the room. "My lord, I must object. This emotional disruption has no legal bearing on the conviction." Justice Fenmore turned slowly. "No legal bearing? My lord, even if this girl has somehow learned private details, it does not erase the crimes." "No," the judge said. "But it changes who may have wanted her condemned before anyone asked the right questions." The prosecutor's expression tightened. A dangerous sentence. Everyone felt it. Justice Fenmore looked at Tessa. "You said the woman who raised you lied about the scar. What was her name?" Tessa hesitated. "Agnes Rill." A murmur moved through the older townsfolk. The judge heard it. "Who was Agnes Rill?" An elderly clerk near the front reluctantly stood. "She kept rooms near Mill Lane, my lord. Took in washing, took in children sometimes. Not kindly." "Where is she now?" "Dead these 4 years." The judge looked back at Tessa. "Did she ever tell you where you came from?" "No." "Did she ever call you Rosalind?" "No." "Did she keep anything from your childhood?" Tessa's eyes dropped. "A ribbon." "What ribbon?" A blue ribbon faded nearly white. She said it was worthless and would not let me throw it away. The judge gripped the bench. The ribbon found in the mud had been blue. But not the only blue ribbon Rosalind wore that day. There had been another tied around her wrist. His wife had tied it there. Because Rosalind liked matching things. Justice Fenmore's voice grew rough. "Where is it?" "At Alderwick House, in my trunk, Mr. Hale said quickly. "Conveniently inaccessible." Tessa looked at him. "You seem very worried by small things for a man so certain I am guilty." A ripple moved through the crowd. Hale flushed. Justice Fenmore turned to the court officer. "Send 2 guards to Alderwick House. Retrieve Miss Marlowe's trunk. No one in that house is to touch it before they arrive." The officer bowed and left. Edmund Voss stepped forward. "My lord, surely Alderwick House should not be invaded over the tricks of a condemned maid." Justice Fenmore's gaze snapped to him. "She is not condemned until I say this court is finished." Voss went quiet, but not quickly enough. Tessa looked at him. There was fear in her face now. Not fear of death, fear of memory. Justice Fenmore saw it. "What did he do to you?" he asked. The question was not judicial. It was paternal. That made it more dangerous. Tessa answered carefully. "He tried to force me to leave Alderwick House 2 nights before the fire." "Why?" "Because I found something." The room leaned forward. "What?" "A child's prayer book hidden behind a loose brick in the old laundry wall. It had a name inside." The judge's voice became very still. "What name?" Tessa looked at Voss. "Rosalind Fenmore." A sound like thunder moved through the court. Justice Fenmore's face emptied. Voss shouted, "Lie!" Tessa flinched. The judge saw that too. His voice dropped. "Where is the book? Gone, mister." Voss took it. Voss pointed at her. "This is invention. She is desperate." Tessa's voice sharpened. "No. I was desperate when you locked me in the scullery and told me girls without family should not ask about names that belong to judges." The crowd erupted again. Justice Fenmore slammed the gavel down. "Silence!" This time the room obeyed, mister. Hale approached the bench, voice low but still audible. "My lord, you cannot preside over this matter now. If the girl is claiming to be your daughter, you are compromised." The judge stared at him. "You are correct." Hale blinked. That was not the answer he expected. Justice Fenmore turned to the court. "I will not judge the question of her identity." Hale began to relax. Then the judge added, "But I will judge the conduct of this court, the evidence presented before me, and every man who rushed a girl toward death while hiding facts from the law." Hale's relaxation vanished. The judge continued. "The sentence is suspended. The conviction is reopened. The prisoner is now under the protection of this court pending inquiry." Mr. Hale objected loudly. Justice Fenmore ignored him. Then the courtroom doors opened. 2 guards entered. Between them walked a woman in a dark green cloak. The room quieted. She was middle-aged, with tired eyes and a scar across one cheek. She carried a leather satchel clutched tightly to her chest. The clerk frowned. "Who are you?" The woman looked at Tessa first. Her face crumpled. Then she turned to the judge. "My name is Mara Quill. I was nursemaid to Rosalind Fenmore." The judge went utterly still. Tessa whispered, "I know you." Mara nodded, tears slipping down her face. "You were 3 when I last held you awake." Justice Fenmore stepped down from the bench again. His voice shook. "You died." Mara looked at him with unbearable guilt. "No, my lord," I ran. The room seemed to vanish around them. The judge spoke slowly. "You were found drowned. A body was found. Not mine." "Why?" Mara looked toward Edmund Voss. "Because I was paid to disappear after the child was taken." Voss shouted, "This is outrageous!" Mara flinched but continued. I did not know they meant to keep her gone forever. I was told it was a temporary ransom plot. I was young, afraid, stupid. By the time I understood, Rosalind had been passed from hand to hand. Justice Fenmore looked as if each word struck him physically. Who took her? Mara opened her satchel. Inside were letters, receipts, a child's drawing, and a faded blue ribbon. I kept proof because cowardice ages badly, she said. And when I heard a maid named Tessa Marlowe was to be judged in Greybridge, I came. Too late, perhaps, but I came. Tessa stared at the ribbon, her hand lifted as if pulled by memory. Mara turned toward her. You had a little silver bell on your shoe. You cried when it was lost. Your mother sang to you near the river. You called your father Papa Judge because you thought all judges were named after him. The judge covered his mouth with one hand. Tessa closed her eyes. A memory rose. Sun on grass, a man lifting her high, a woman laughing, a bell sound, then panic. Hands pulling, a cloth over her face. She swayed. The judge moved instinctively, but stopped before touching her. He had no right yet, not until she gave it. Tessa opened her eyes. Who paid you? Mara's face hardened. Not your father's enemies, as I thought for years. The room went silent. Justice Fenmore whispered. Who? Mara pointed at Edmund Voss. His family's dead. Voss stumbled backward. My family? Mara nodded. Your father was clerk to the old Lord Alderwick. He arranged the abduction because Justice Fenmore had discovered estate fraud connected to Alderwick lands. Taking the child silenced him. The judge's face turned to stone. Now the story made sense. His daughter had not vanished because of chance. She had been taken to break him, and it had worked. For 15 years it had worked. Tessa turned toward Voss. You knew who I was? Voss's mouth opened. No answer came. Mara said. He knew when he saw the scar. He knew when he found the prayer book. He framed her because if she reached the judge alive, the old crime would return. The room exploded. Voss ran. Not toward the door, toward the side passage. A guard lunged but missed. Tessa moved before anyone expected. She stepped into Voss's path and struck the side table with both hands, tipping it over. Voss crashed across it and fell hard. The guards seized him. Justice Fenmore did not move. He watched the steward being dragged back to the room. Then he looked at Tessa. She was breathing hard. Her hair had loosened. Her face was pale. But she was alive. Alive. The word nearly broke him. The guards returned with her trunk near dusk. Inside, wrapped in a worn apron, they found the second blue ribbon. A tiny silver shoe bell. And a scrap of parchment with a child's drawing of a man in a black robe, holding hands with a little girl beneath a crooked sun. At the bottom, in a child's uncertain letters, Papa Judge and Rosie. Justice Fenmore sat down as if his body could no longer hold itself upright. Tessa stared at the drawing. Her lips trembled. I drew that? His voice broke. Yes. The court was silent now. No hunger, no gossip, only shame. For they had come to watch a maid condemned. Instead, they watched a father find the daughter he had nearly lost twice. But the final question remained. Who in Alderwick House had ordered the fire? And why had Lady Pembury's necklace been hidden in Tessa's mattress? As Voss was held by guards, he smiled through blood on his lip and said, You still do not know the highest name. Justice Fenmore lifted his eyes. What name? Voss looked toward the back of the courtroom. Everyone turned. Lady Mirabel Pembury stood there, pale as wax, and around her throat was the necklace she had accused Tessa of stealing. Lady Mirabel Pembury tried to leave before anyone spoke her name. That was her mistake. In a courtroom filled with shock, movement becomes confession. The guards closed the doors again. Every eye turned to her. She stood beneath the gallery arch in a pale lavender gown, one gloved hand at her throat. At her throat glittered the missing necklace, diamonds, pearls, a teardrop sapphire. The same necklace Tessa had supposedly stolen. The necklace that had justified searching her trunk. The necklace that had never been missing at all. Justice Fenmore's voice returned colder than winter. Lady Pembury. She forced a smile. My lord, this has become a grotesque scene. I came only to observe justice and found theatre. Tessa looked at the necklace. Her face hardened. You said I stole that. Lady Mirabelle touched it, as if only just remembering it was there. This? No. This is a similar piece. Mr. Hale, the prosecutor, looked suddenly unwell. Justice Fenmore turned to him. You accepted testimony identifying the stolen item. Hale swallowed. I received sworn statements from Alderwick House. From whom? His eyes flicked to Voss, then to Lady Mirabelle. The answer was already visible. Justice Fenmore looked back at Mirabelle. Remove the necklace. Her face flushed. I will not be humiliated by a servant girl's fantasy. Tessa said quietly, I am not your servant anymore. That sentence stopped the room. Not because of pride, because of truth. Tessa Marlowe, the condemned maid, had entered that court with no name strong enough to protect her. Now, she stood as the possible daughter of the judge himself. But she was not speaking like a girl eager to climb into rank. She spoke like someone who had finally understood that truth did not need permission. Justice Fenmore said, remove it. This time it was not to request. Lady Mirabelle hesitated, then slowly unclasped the necklace and placed it on the evidence table. The old clerk examined it. His hands trembled. This bears the Pembury crest on the clasp, my lord. It is the missing necklace. A loud murmur swept the court. Lady Mirabelle's mask cracked. Fine, she snapped, so the necklace was found. That does not explain the fire. No, Tessa said. But I can. All eyes turned to her. Justice Fenmore's face changed. He wanted to stop her, not because he doubted her, because she had endured enough. But Tessa shook her head slightly. A silent answer. Let me speak. He stepped back. Tessa faced the court. I was not near the pantry to steal. I was hiding someone. Lady Mirabelle's face went white. Voss shouted, Shut your mouth! Tessa did not. There was a boy at Alderwick House, a stable boy named Niall. He saw for Mr. Voss and Lady Mirabelle arguing near the jewel room. He heard them say my name. He ran to me because he was frightened. I hid him in the west pantry because I thought it was safe. Justice Fenmore asked, Where is this boy now? Tessa's voice faltered. I do not know. After the fire he was gone. Lady Mirabelle lifted her chin. How convenient. Another vanished witness. Tessa turned to her. You know exactly where he is. The woman said nothing. Mara Quill stepped forward. I may know. Everyone looked at her. Mara opened her satchel again and removed a small wooden token. A boy gave this to me outside the prison last night. He was too frightened to enter. Said if Tessa died, I should take it to the judge. Tessa reached for it. The token was carved roughly in the shape of a horse. Niall had made it during winter evenings in the servants' hall. Tears filled her eyes. He is alive, Mara nodded. He told me to look beneath the Alderwick Chapel steps. The court officer was sent immediately. The wait felt endless. During that time, Voss sat guarded and silent. Lady Mirabelle stared ahead with the rigid composure of someone rearranging lies in her mind. Mr. Hale avoided the judge's eyes. Justice Fenmore remained standing near Tessa, not touching her, not crowding her, but near enough that the court understood something had changed. At last, near full dark, the officer returned, with Niall. The stable boy was thin, bruised, frightened, and wrapped in a guard's coat, but alive. Tessa covered her mouth. Niall, He saw her and began to cry. "I'm sorry," he said. "I ran. You lived," she answered. "That is enough?" Justice Fenmore ordered water for the boy and had him seated. Gently, carefully, Niall told the court what he had seen. Lady Mirabelle had never lost the necklace. She and Edmund Voss had planted suspicion on Tessa because Tessa had found the prayer book with Rosalind's name. But the fire had gone wrong. It was meant only to destroy the laundry wall where more hidden records were stored. Lady Pembury's elderly mother had been sleeping in a nearby chamber, forgotten by those who set the blaze. The room went cold. Lady Mirabelle finally broke. "It was not meant to harm anyone," she said. The courtroom stared. That sentence damned her more than denial. Justice Fenmore's voice was quiet. "But it did." She looked at him with desperate anger. "You do not understand what families like ours must protect." He stepped closer. "I understand what your family protected. Fraud, abduction, false testimony, arson. A girl's condemnation." Lady Mirabelle shook her head. "Your daughter was gone. Gone. Do you know how many estates would have fallen if the old Alderwick fraud was reopened? How many marriages ruined? How many titles questioned?" Tessa looked at her. "So I was supposed to die for your comfort?" Lady Mirabelle had no answer. That was answer enough. The magistrate ordered Lady Mirabelle, Edmund Voss, and Mr. Hale detained pending formal inquiry. Hale protested that he had only followed presented evidence. Justice Fenmore looked at him with disgust. "Evidence does not present itself. Men carry it. Men shape it. Men decide when not to look too closely." Hale had no reply. The court emptied slowly after midnight. No one cheered. This was not a victory that permitted cheering. A girl had almost been sent to die because rich people preferred buried crimes. A father had almost condemned his own child because grief had trained him to trust law more than instinct. And Tessa? She stood near the witness rail, staring at nothing. Justice Fenmore approached carefully. The great courtroom was nearly empty now. Only Mara, Niall, and 2 guards remained at a distance. "Tessa," he said. She looked at him. The name hung between them. Not Rosalind. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. He understood that. His voice was unsteady. "I do not know what right I have to ask anything of you." She looked down at her hands. "You are my father." His face twisted. "Yes, the word was both answer and wound." She swallowed. "And you sentenced me." His eyes filled. "Yes, no excuse, no defense, no speech about being deceived, just the truth." Tessa's mouth trembled. "I do not know how to feel, nor should you be asked to decide tonight." She looked at him then, really looked. The iron judge, the man who had nearly ended her life, the father who had lost her, the father who had stopped the court the moment he saw the scar. "I remembered something," she whispered. He barely breathed. "What?" "You had ink on your fingers." His face broke. Tessa continued softly. "When I was small, you would come home with ink on your fingers. Mother said judges should wash before lifting children, and you said ink proved you had been working to make the world fair." A tear slipped down his cheek. Tessa's own eyes filled. "I remember thinking the world must be very fair if my father worked so hard." Justice Fenmore bowed his head. "I failed you." "Yes," she said. The honesty hurt him, but he accepted it. Then she added, "But perhaps not forever." He looked up. She was crying now, but standing tall. "I do not know if I can be Rosalind again." "You need not be." "I do not know if I can call you father. I will answer to whatever name you allow." A faint, broken smile crossed her face. "Papa Judge sounds foolish now." He laughed once, a sound so wounded and surprised that it became almost a sob. "No," he said. "It sounds like mercy." Weeks passed before Greybridge stopped speaking of the trial. Months passed before the full Alderwick fraud was uncovered. Years of forged accounts, stolen lands, silent servants, bribed clerks, and false charges came spilling into daylight. Lady Mirabelle Pembury's family fell from influence. Voss confessed after Niall's testimony was confirmed. Mr. Hale was stripped of office. Mara Quill stood as witness and accepted whatever judgment came for her old cowardice. Tessa asked that her truth count for something. Justice Fenmore resigned from the bench for 1 year. Not in disgrace alone, in penance. "I have trusted procedure more than people," he wrote publicly. And that is how injustice learns to wear a robe. As for Tessa, she did not move into Fenmore House immediately. She could not. The rooms were too full of a childhood she did not remember, and a mother she had lost twice. Instead, she took a small cottage near to the river, with Niall's aunt as companion. Justice Fenmore visited every afternoon at 4. At first, they spoke of simple things: weather, books, tea, the garden. Then slowly the past, her mother's laugh, the summer fair, the blue ribbons, the silver shoe bell, the scar. One afternoon, Tessa finally asked, "How did I get it?" Justice Fenmore looked at the crescent scar near her collarbone. "You were 3. You tried to rescue a kitten from beneath the rose trellis and fell against the iron border. You were very brave until the physician arrived. Then you demanded cake for your suffering." Tessa smiled. "That sounds like me." He looked at her with gentle grief. "Yes," he said, "it does." Over time, the town learned to call her Miss Fenmore. Some tried Lady Rosalind. She refused it. "I have been Tessa longer," she said. "Let Rosalind return slowly." And she did, not as a lost child magically restored, not as a maid transformed overnight into a judge's daughter, but as a woman who carried both lives inside her. The girl who scrubbed floors, the child who wore blue ribbons, the servant condemned by lies, the daughter revealed by a scar. And when people retold the story, they always made the scar the miracle. They said the judge sentenced the maid, then she showed him the mark only his lost daughter had. But Tessa knew the scar was not the miracle. The miracle was that she spoke after the sentence, that the truth survived beneath poverty, fear, false names, and years of silence. That a father who had become iron still cracked when the right memory touched him, and that a girl the court had decided was disposable stood before the law and forced it to look back at her. Because the powerful often believe they can bury a child, rename her, dress her in servant brown, and use her silence as proof that she was never anyone. But blood remembers, songs remember, old ribbons remember. And sometimes, just before the final door closes, a hidden scar rises into the light. And the whole court realizes it was never judging a maid. It was judging the daughter it failed to protect.